Hello and welcome to this week's session for Vision, Values, and Goals for the University Seminar and ARP 296 courses. My name is Randy Tim, and I look forward to going through this program with you today. One of the first things I'm going to ask you to do is I want you to think about an item, something you'd like to purchase or something you'd like to have. Take a moment and think about an item that you just have to have. As an example, when we began this process, I was asked this question and I said, well, the item that I had to have was an iPad. I really wanted an iPad badly. And the next question that I was asked, and the question I'll pose to you was, what would you do with the item that you have to have? So for example, when I was asked this question, I said I had to have an iPad. Well, okay, if that's the thing you have to have, what would you do with this iPad? And I had to stop and think, well, this is actually an opportunity for me to have like all of my presentations in one place, my calendar in one place, the opportunity of taking notes in one place versus lugging around all sorts of different things. And ultimately, if I had an iPad and I could do these things, I'd be better at my job. Okay, well, if I could do all those things and be better at my job, ultimately, for me, at the time I was a director of student life, I knew that I wanted to be a dean of students. And for me, having an iPad and being able to do those things would allow me to be a better director of student life that ultimately would allow me to be a dean of students. So the goal here, when I was asked this, was actually the thing that you want in your life, or the thing you were looking forward to, was being a dean of students. And in this point, I think this is it was a great opportunity for me to recognize, actually, that was very true. And thinking about the thing that I just had to have, it ultimately represented something else larger for me in my life. And we're hoping that you can do this for yourself now as well. Think about the item that you just had to have. Okay, now with that item, what would you be able to do with it? What are you trying to get out of it? And then ultimately, because you had this thing and you could do something with it, what would you ultimately be? And for an example, I often hear from students who are commuting to campus that they'd have to have a car. They really would like to have a car. And if they had a car, they would be able to not have to ride the trolley to campus, and it would cut down on the amount of time that they're spending commuting to campus. And ultimately, it would be allow them to use their time better, and they'd be a better student. And because they'd be a better student, they'd ultimately be a better son or daughter for their parents and their family, and they'd be able to be better connected. Again, ultimately, the thing they wanted to be there was something different than what they wanted to have. So often, these can be challenging items to think about. But again, go through that process for yourself. Write down what's the item you have to have, what would you do with that item, and ultimately, what's the goal? Why do you want to do this or be this? The emphasis in our society, we've become very consumer driven. We often put the emphasis on the things that you have to have, but in this exercise, we're hoping that you can start to change it and turn it the other way around. Who is it that you ultimately want to be? And that's a good question to ask. But if you know who it is that you ultimately want to be, if you know what that life goal is of where you're going, then if you find the actions of people who already do that and you just act on those, ultimately those have to have items will come. So that focus becomes who is it you want to be, find those actions, and then the have to haves come. But again, the focus would be on the be rather than the have. And the format would then be act, have. This is the process of creating a vision. And a vision is a practice. It's not something you just do once and it's over with. It's something you have to constantly looking at. For example, once a year, I have the opportunity of looking at my vision and my values and my goals. And I sit down with a group of people who it's a great opportunity for me to sit down and chat with that are special friends in my life. And we talk through about what's the vision and am I going in the direction that I want to go into? Ultimately, it's about keeping the eye on the prize of what do you want in your life. It helps you create goals and a life path. And that's what I'm hoping you can do for yourself. I want you to take a moment here and to write down 5 life goals that you want for yourself. These could be many different items, but the focus is on who is it that you want to be ultimately in life. Write those 5 life goals down now. And if you need to take a moment to to push pause and to think about this, that's fine. But again, we're looking for 5 ultimate life goals. And next, we're going to switch between the difference between goals and values, and we're going to start focusing on values. But before we can focus on values, we have to talk about what's the difference between a value and a moral. Think about that. We've heard both those words used before. Are they interchangeable or are they different? So for the use of this presentation today, we're going to focus on values of those items or those values that you would need in working with others. Think of it as the horizontal development of your values, or what do you need when working with other people that are who are here with you. Morals are more of a perspective of what do you want when you look to God. It's the vertical development of our values. It may come from society or the church or your faith systems. Again, morals are more focused towards belief systems, and values are more focused on what is it, the behaviors that you need in working with other people. So we're going to put the focus on what are the behaviors you need in working with other people. So as part of our exercise today, you're going to do an inventory and you're going to come up with 5 values. We're going to give you a card to write them down on. But I want you to think about it real quickly. What are 5 values that you like or you need and that you always bring to the table when you're working with other people? If you need some ideas of coming up with different values, here's a list of some of the values we've heard from students over the years. Some people value all of the things that are on this list. What you might do is go through and circle or think about maybe 10 of the items that are on the list that are the most important to you. And then once you have those 10, how can you narrow it down to just 5? Are there some things that overlap with each other? Are there some things that may be close to one another that maybe you could combine together? But ultimately, the focus is on finding 5 values. And again, if you need to push pause, feel free to do so now. Okay, once you have your 5 values, I'd like to take a moment and watch the power of one on this video. It'll take me a second to cue it up, but I think you'll enjoy it. So think about some of the visual images you just saw in that video. Were there any that stuck out to you in particular? And if so, why? Ultimately, what do you think the people in those videos were doing, or what was the point of what they were doing in those moments? And then also think about, are these visual images from today? Probably not. But we'll talk about some of the visual images that you might experience in your own life that represent people living out their values. And that's ultimately what we're wanting to talk about. All the people in these videos were people who were living up to their values. They were standing up for what they believed in. And ultimately, the world needs people who are going to stand up for their values. We also need people who essentially are people of character. And the idea of you identifying your values, knowing what those values are, and living up to those values even when nobody is watching, that's the act of developing character. People who care for others or other situations and it outweighs an ulterior motive to benefit themselves. The focus is on living your values no matter who's watching. And if you think back to the visual images that were in the video, again, those are probably images from the mid to late 20th century. But are there images today that would represent students or people from your generation who live up to their values? Think about that. Are there things today that or people today who live out their values, and what are those visual images from today in society? So at this point in time, you've developed 5 values, and you've talked about 5 goals as well. And I'd like to talk about a little bit on how this develops a vision for your life of where things are going. Again, you've identified those 5 values, and there's a place up there where I put where those values might be, and you have 5 life goals. Do you think that these will probably remain the same over time? Probably not. You're going to find that again, if this is a practice, your values and your goals may change over time, and that's expected and probably healthy. But where your values and your goals meet can become a 3 to 5 year mission. So if you think about these are my values and this is ultimately where I'm going, well, there's a mission that you're going to accomplish or some things you want to do in the next 3 to 5 years. It's creating, again, a little bit of a benchmark or an idea of where you're focused at going in the next 3 to 5 years. For example, you may have a value of education, and a goal might be to get a degree from SDSU. And again, that mission then might be obtaining a degree from SDSU, getting a job by within the next 5 years, so on and so forth. But again, if your vision and your goals change over time, or your values and your goals change over time, ultimately you're going to see that vision is a little bit broader than a specific mission statement or goal statements. Vision is kind of the direction that you know that you want your life to go. It might be having a family. It might be traveling the world. It might be, rather than a specific job or career, it might be working with people. Ultimately, creating a vision for yourself helps you understand a trajectory or an area that you're going in your life. So again, where your values and your goals cross, create a 3 to 5 year mission, and a vision statement is a bit broader than that. It's something that might be on down the line. And at this point in time, I'd like you to do this. Um, Put your values down, write out your goals, and think in the next 3 to 5 years, is there a mission that you have that's something you want to create? And a mission statement should be about a sentence, maybe 2 sentences long, to just give you an idea of a benchmark of where you're going. We'll talk more about vision in class as well, but for now and for exercises this week, you'll be writing down those values, those goals, and identifying a mission statement for yourself in the next 3 to 5 years. Thanks again. I look forward to discussing this with you all in class.